Is this on?
Yes, it's working.
Oh, okay,
it's working.
Yeah. Okay,
Minh,
yeah.
you know what? I'm really excited to be here. Personally, I have to admit I'm not a gamer, so I had to research a lot of this stuff. But I'm excited to talk to you because I think your story is just it's really impressive, right? You said that you never ever envisioned Counter-Strike becoming this big thing, right? And when you found out that after 25 years it's still being played, you said that you were quite shocked about that, right? So if you think about the last 25 years in gaming, how has gaming changed over the last 25 years?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. So, I mean, the game industry has changed incredibly over the last 25 years, mostly in terms of just growth. Because when I invented Counter-Strike, there wasn't a lot of games. And so it was actually easier for a game like Counter-Strike to blow up and become like a viral sensation. But I think right now, what we have in the industry is we have this overabundance of games. We have so many games. Like if you go online, if you go to Steam, there's just games for everybody. There's so many different types of games and genres. So it's a lot more difficult for amateur developers to kind of blow up in the same way that Counter-Strike did. So I do feel like I felt like I got lucky in that I created the game at a time when the industry was kind of in its infancy. And so, yeah, it's just so much has changed since then because developing games has become much easier because we have so many tools that makes the creation of games so much more accessible. And so so that's why we're seeing so many games being developed and so much growth in the industry right now.
But Counter-Strike still, even though many games are on the market, is still being played today. We'll get to that in a moment because I'm curious to know more about why that is. But before we do, I would like to ask you about when you created Counter-Strike. I know it wasn't a thing you had planned, right? You were like a gamer. You loved shooting, I remember. And so when you were developing Counter-Strike, what was something that you loved and what was something that was super challenging about that?
So I think, well, the difficulty when I was creating Counter-Strike was back then, 25 years ago, we didn't have many tools like we have today, like YouTube and all these incredibly powerful tools that allows us. And so we were struggling to communicate with our team members effectively. We had some tools that really, they weren't as sophisticated as what we have right now. And so I think one of our challenges was really just the team communication. And because a lot of our team members, we were just based all over the world. We weren't like, just like in one area of the world. We were all like just situated in different parts of the world. So dealing with all the different developers across time zones 25 years ago was much more difficult than it was today. And another difficulty was basically finding information because 25 years ago, we didn't have Google. We didn't have anything like that. So when I ever had a problem, like how do I do this how do I make the game how do I change the game to do this? I had to do a lot more research and it just took a lot more time. And it was much more difficult to find colleagues who could help me. And so that was really the biggest challenge. It was really just connecting with fellow developers. But that problem doesn't exist today. Today we have a much more established framework for communicating and getting our ideas out there. So that was really the biggest challenge.
And I think as a result, things also happen a lot faster these days, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, really good point. Yeah, because of the tools that we have, because of all the ways that we have of reaching out to other colleagues, we can develop at a much rapid pace. And so that's why we see games being developed much quicker these days compared to 25 years ago, for sure. That's a really good point.
I think another point that you brought up earlier was about how this game, is still on the market today, and that back then, it was easier to create games because there wasn't that much out there, right?
Yes.
So if you think about the longevity, right, of this game, of how would you say, what is the secret reason why it has lasted for 25 years? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I think one of the key successes to Counter-Strike's longevity is the fact that it hasn't really changed its core gameplay mechanic. So when people play Counter-Strike today, they feel the same way they did when they played it 25 years ago. Like the game itself hasn't really changed itself from a standpoint of the way that the game plays. Like the graphics have changed, and like it looks much better than it was 25 years ago. But fundamentally, the game itself is actually very similar to what it was 25 years ago, and that's really important in order to grow an ecosystem around it. And so that's why we have such a vibrant esports community that's grown around Counter-Strike, because of the fact that the game is so consistent, and the people that have played it 10 years ago can still play it today. And so that allows a lot of ecosystems to kind of flourish and grow outside of the community. Whereas when you have games that are constantly changing and they're evolving, it's much more difficult to grow an ecosystem outside of it. Yeah.
I think this part about community is actually super interesting because unlike many other games, Counter-Strike started out as a mod, and I had to look this up, modification, right, of an existing game.
Yes.
And so we call these people modders, right?
Yes.
People that modify. So basically, you're a modder.
Yes, exactly.
And
yes.
so they're basically like creators, right? I had to think like the Instagram creators creating content. And so this modding community, right, it allows a lot of creativity to flourish, right? And so if you think about what's possible with that, comparing that to these big studios, these big corporations like Electronic Arts, Nintendo, I think that it's safe to say that it's probably easier to be creative and community-based games than it is for these big corporations who like to play it safe, right? What do you have to say about that?
Yes, exactly. That's a really good point. So I feel that the modding community, the amateurs, they're the ones that are able to take creative risks. Because when you're taking creative risks, you have a high chance of failing. And so that scares a lot of the established larger companies because they can't afford to fail. Like they can't afford to spend 5 years to make a game and invest a lot of money into this game and not know whether or not it's going to be a success or not. But as a modder, you're able to kind of create these small little games and these small little prototypes for these ideas, and you're able to take a chance because you don't have as much invested in it. So the scale of your project is much smaller. Like, you're not spending millions of dollars developing a game. You're spending literally just thousands of dollars, just developing these smaller prototypes and these smaller games. And it's these games that allow the industry to kind of find new ideas. Because if you look at the top 10 games that are played today, I would say 8 out of 10 of them have come from modding roots. They've come from people that were able to take chances, take risks. Like, for example, League of Legends, that came from a mod. Counter-Strike, it came from a mod. Fortnite was based on a game. Well, Fortnite actually copied another game that was also based on a mod. So Fortnite copied a game called PUBG. And so if you're familiar with these two games, but Fortnite basically copied the idea from another game, and that game was actually based off of a mod. So modding is the thing that actually drives the creativity of the industry, because they're the ones that are able to take the risk. And so the larger studios, they just kind of watch. They just kind of watch and see how what's popular. And so when they see something that's popular, then they allocate all of their money and make a very much more polished version of that game. So that's kind of how they work, and it's much more risk adverse for them because they're able to kind of watch and see, which of these amateur projects have a success, have a potential for becoming big. And so for them, it's a really great tool, because they're able to just kind of watch from up high and just not take that risk. And then when something kind of starts to catch fire, they're able to see it and kind of realize it and say, whoa, okay, that's a good idea. Let's copy that. Let's put a lot of our resources into that. And so that's kind of how the game industry's kind of worked over the past 25 years.
So where's the biggest reward then, would you say?
For a modder?
For both parties, right? It sounds like the creative reward and maybe even the financial reward is with modders, right? Mm-hmm. But they're taking a big risk as well.
Yeah.
And then the financial reward is definitely with the big corporates, Would you
Yeah.
agree with that, or would you say that that's not the case?
A lot of times what happens is the modders actually, what ends up happening is they actually get approached by the bigger companies and they say, we like your idea and we're gonna build we're gonna take it and we're gonna build a better game out of that. So in some ways the modders, they're able to kind of take their idea and kind of blow it up, basically, if they get approached by a larger company. And oftentimes that's kind of how it works. Like for example, with Counter-Strike, I was approached by a big company called Valve, based in Seattle. And so they contacted me when they saw my game, and they wanted to work with me. I mean, you know, the funny thing is, they could have just stole my idea and just made their own version. I mean, they could have done that, but they were nice.
Could they have? Did you not have like well, obviously IP back in the days?
No, well, I was 20 years old. I didn't have any knowledge about IPs or any of that. So I didn't really bother to copyright the idea for it. But I think the reason they approached me is because they saw the community that I had grown. And they saw the people that were playing my game, and they realized it wouldn't be a good idea for them to do that because it would be very kind of like, it would make them look kind of bad and kind of thing. So they were very kind, and they worked with me on an official capacity. They didn't try to just copy it and make a clone out of the game. So in that sense, they were quite generous to me.
So that's good ethics, right? And also,
ethics, yeah.
you got lucky, I guess, in that sense.
And that's how a lot of modders enter the game industry. Yeah, they basically create these small prototypes, and they get approached by bigger companies with more financial backing.
Minh, let's talk a little bit about the importance of user-generated content. That is like a key part of Counter-Strike, right? Players aren't just players; they're actually kind of developers, creators in the game. So they can do things like create skin weapons or weapon skins. I had to look that up. I was like, a skin for a weapon? What is that? Right, to make your weapon look different. They can create new fighting arenas, et cetera, et cetera. And so I know you said that corporates aren't doing that because they don't want to take the risk, but they could just be emulating that, couldn't they? They could also be just embracing more user content.
Well, yeah, I think with larger companies like EA or Activision, the thing about user-generated content is it kind of conflicts with their business model, because with these larger companies, they actually want to create new content themselves and sell it like on a yearly basis. So like every year they want to create a new version of a game. So they want to sell like an add-on pack or like a DLC. So the user-generated content kind of conflicts with that business model, and so you don't see it that often in some of the larger companies like EA or you know, you don't see user-generated content for some of the biggest games like Battlefield 6, which was released recently. Though I think some of them are starting to embrace it a little, but still, I think most of them, I think, like for example, like Call of Duty, you don't see user-generated content for that. But yeah, you see some of Valve do a much better approach about, you know, they embrace it because they understand that it increases the longevity of your game. It allows your community to be a part of the game, and so that drives user engagement, and that's really important. And for a game like Counter-Strike. So yeah, it allows the team at Valve to kind of they don't have to have such a large team because they can just kind of just accept content from the community, and so that basically kind of just drives down the operating costs for themselves.
Just let's look into the future. Obviously, if I was sitting in the room talking to you, I am sitting in the room talking to you. But if somebody in the audience, like, I'd be really curious, like, what is your kind of future plans? What vision do you have for gaming for the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, well, I think the industry is it's constantly shifting, and it's hard to predict where it's going to be in 5 to 10 years. Because looking back, if I ever look back on the evolution of game industry over the past 25 years, it's been fairly kind of predictable. But now that we have things like AI starting to kind of get into the industry, it's hard to predict how it's going to change the workflow and how it's going to take the direction of the industry. So it's, but I'm kind of excited to see how it's going to grow, though, because I still believe that there's still a large part for human creativity to be a part of the game industry. Because at the end of the day, that's really what drives the industry, and that's really what creates new ideas. The AI part of it is just there to help us become more creative and to just help us to just kind of like nudge us in a certain direction when we kind of are at a point where we're kind of stuck and we kind of need a bit of help to just kind of help us to kind of innovate a bit more. But I still feel that there's a large potential for human creativity in the next 25 years. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how the game industry does evolve still.
So one last closing question, because we are a little tight with time today, is there's obviously a lot of founders, creators, innovators, entrepreneurs here in the room. So if you had to give them advice on wanting to build something new, and they're maybe wondering, how do I turn a passion into something that's of lasting value? What would be something that you've learned over the last 25 years that you would like to share with us today?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's always hard to find to just name one particular thing. There's been so many things that I've kind of helped me over the past 25 years, but I think probably the most important thing for me was just communicating and being connecting with colleagues, because making games is not something that you can do on your own. It's best when you can collaborate with colleagues and find people who have the same vision as you, and that's when you're able to create much bigger ideas, much bigger visions. And so being able to connect with your fellow colleagues is really important. So that's why I feel like events like this that allow you to meet new people that are interested in the same idea as you is really important, because it just allows you to kind of just grow your network. And I think that's really one of the things that really helped me in the past 25 years, is just the expanding my network, meeting different people. And yeah, so I think that was probably the most important thing, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, and that's why we're here. Somebody raised their hand. We only have literally 15 seconds, no more. You can press the button on the microphone and then ask your question, but we have to be very fast.
So, you talked about EA. What do you think is the future of profit maximization with the purchase of EA by a private equity firm?
Oh, so with regards to EA being bought out by the investment company, it's hard for me to really say much about it, because I don't really know the exact details of the agreement. But I think it's a positive thing, because I think it'll allow EA to kind of explore different opportunities that they couldn't before. But other than that, I can't really say exactly how it's going to affect their development cycle. But yeah, it's I think I have a few colleagues that work at EA, and so they've expressed some excitement over the acquisition. So it's going to be interesting to see, though. Yeah.
Thanks, Minh. That's unfortunately all we have time for. You can turn the microphone. Yep, there we go. Thank you so much, Minh, for being here, for coming to Valencia, for sharing your passion and your journey. Thanks so much. Minh Lê.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Oh, this way. That's it. Thank you.